Welcome to Asia Gaming Brief's face-to-face series. Today I'm talking with Ben Lee, who's a very familiar figure in Asia gaming circles and the founder and managing partner of iGamiX Management and Consulting. We're going to be talking about the latest criminal law in China and what it means for Macau, as well as the move towards digital RMB. He says that this could be a real game changer for the Macau market. Hi, Ben. Thank you for joining us today. I just wanted to start off by talking about China's new criminal law. There's been quite a bit of speculation as to whether or not that is actually going to apply to Macau. So I just wanted to get your perspective.
Hi, Sharon. Thank you for having me. There is no firm answer to your question. Initially the academics were of the opinion that Macau does fall under the scope of the anti-gambling edict, given that when the pronouncements were made, it clearly specified that any gambling promotional activities outside the mainland will be caught under this new edict. And Macau, together with Hong Kong and Taiwan, are considered outside of the mainland. So, you have that sort of Damocles hanging over our head. Now, since then, we have had analysts come and say that no, Macau is not covered by the edict because we're special, for want of a better explanation. So the most interesting thing is that there has been a lot of speculation to and fro in Macau, in Hong Kong, but there has not been a single voice that has emanated from the mainland to say that no, Macau is not covered by the new edict. And I think that is the single most telling takeaway we have.
Why is it, do you think that is? I mean, they could, very easily correct this, make it clear. Why don't they make it clear?
The reason, and I can only speculate, that the reason they don't want to make it clear is that it is a veiled threat that they can hold over our head without having to really take any form of punitive action against Macau or against any other jurisdiction. And I think that veiled threat has probably been more effective than anything else right now.
Obviously, most of the thought is that the biggest impact will be on the VIP sector and the junkets in particular. What do you think about that?
Oh, absolutely. The junkets evolve in Macau to fulfill a niche, which is essentially to help identify and recruit players from the mainland to come and play in Macau. You got to remember that Macau's domestic market comprised 600,000 people. There is not a mass market as we know it, as you would have in Australia, Singapore, or anywhere else in the world. So all our business comes from outside of Macau. And given that, you have very strong criminalization of gambling and gambling promotion. The junkets evolved to basically fulfill three roles, which are to help identify and target players from the mainland. Number two, to help move them, and more importantly, their money across from the mainland to Macau using various channels. And thirdly, to the ability to grant credit and to multiply the volume of business and eventually to collect on that debt over the mainland. Those things are not able to be done by the casino operators for very obvious reasons.
Do you see a future for junkets in Macau? And given that there's been a lot of talk about the sector that everybody's targeting is premium mass, these are still big players who are bringing in a lot more money than, in theory, they are allowed to under China's rules. So how does that work?
The anti-gambling edict and the recent spate of crackdowns have been very effective against the third component of the junket activities, which is the movement of funds through underground channels. Now, the movement of funds through underground channel is not the junket's core activity. It is something they have to do in order to meet and service their clients' needs. They actually don't make any money from the movement of funds. They, as I mentioned before, they do rely on other and sometimes external channels, sometimes internal, but usually external channels to effect that function. Their most important function or functions as junket operators is really the ability to identify and recruit players from mainland China and bring them over to Macau, and B, the ability to recognize and grant credit. And again, this is something that the casino operators are unable to do. Now, with the criminalization, it just knocks out one of the three functions, but two important ones remain. Now, bear in mind that we have had recent increased chatter about the potential introduction of the e-renminbi or digital renminbi. Now, we came up with this hypothesis back in August last year, and we were the first to do so. We looked at the increasing chatter in Macau, in China, about the potential introduction of the renminbi, e-renminbi to Macau. Right now, with all the cross-currency restrictions between China and Macau, China and Hong Kong, the typical average VIP player, or even the average mass player, they are faced with huge constraints on the ability to bring cash out of China to Macau or to Hong Kong. And that's why, the evolution of the need for the underground channels. But with the potential, with the introduction of digital renminbi, the Macau then will become a single currency jurisdiction with China. We would no longer need to have the constraints on cross-border transactions, because the e-renminbi or digital renminbi would allow central authorities to be able to monitor the transfer of funds from the mainland to Macau. So it's a long way to answer your question. So yes, the VIP segment that we used to have, that may disappear, particularly the ones who have not been able to explain their funds. But the market is then open to a much broader segment, which is the lower ranks of the VIPs, or what we call as premium mass, the middle ranks of the VIPs, people who have made their money legitimately and have no problems with the government tracking their movement of funds or wealth between the mainland and Macau. Now, once that happens, the market for the casinos absolutely explodes. We now can call China truly as our domestic market. Now, with regards to the cross-border constraints, the need to monitor and try and control the hundreds of thousands of transactions between China and Macau, whether it's freely through the ATM, through UnionPay, or through the underground channels, that headache gets resolved by the fact that they no longer have to do that. All they have to do now is, with the casinos making their profits in renminbi, when they want to repatriate their profits overseas, the casino operators then have to apply to central banking authorities to get permission to repatriate their profit overseas. Currently, with the Hong Kong dollar as our default currency, there is no restrictions whatsoever on their potential repatriation.
If you had to put a timeline on how long this may take to evolve, what would you say?
Well, when we first came out with our speculation and our hypothesis, that was in August last year, the speculation and industry coverage of the issue has increased. Sell sides have started picking up on that issue, and they're now writing notes on that. And not only that, I believe the Ministry for, not for tourism, one of the Chinese ministries have now openly looked at the possibility of introducing and testing the digital renminbi in Macau and Hong Kong. And I believe the Macau authorities have said that, yes, they're ready for it. And in fact, one of the reasons why we came out so strongly with our hypothesis was that our network of contacts actually told us when we came up with this new theory that you're not too far off the mark, and that the local authorities actually already have a plan in place, just waiting for the trigger. And this plan is really, this plan is very brief, and it basically meant the potential launch of renminbi could be done in as short a time period as 3 months from the word go to introduction.
It sounds like you're quite bullish on Macau. If I had to really put you on the spot and say, how big do you see this market in terms of GGR? Would you have a theory on that?
Well, you know how we have heard the sky's the limit in the past. This is truly a case where the potential GGR is extremely hard to calculate. We are looking at the whole of China as a domestic market with the digital renminbi.
And I just want to end on one last note, because I know that the junkets have had a very bad rap. They're always talked about, and usually in negative terms. And I just wanted to get your perspective a little bit, because I know that they've made quite a big contribution to the gaming industry in Macau. So I'd like to hear the other side of the story there.
Oh, absolutely. Without the junkets, Macau would not be where it is currently.
Thank you very much for your help today, Ben.
All right.
Take care.
Thanks, Sharon.
Bye. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining Asia Gaming Brief's Face-to-Face series. Join us every Friday for our chats with leading figures in Asia's gaming industry.